Right. And, now that we're on this topic, I think it's really good. When we talk about being a good tech company, a lot of it is coming from where your heart is, right? And how you've actually turned your business into or at least in the area of service, looking at why you want to do this, why you are doing, putting robotics and AI into the coffee and more, right? It's got to come from somewhere. What is it, right, about being a good tech company, and what is it that you're trying to solve at the end of the day, apart from the pains and of running a traditional retail? What is it that you're trying to solve?
You know, I invested into Crown, and I tried the traditional way, running cafes, giving a lot of passion, building it for locations, and it was something that was really tough. Like I said, with manpower, and but besides that, I realized that this traditional way of running cafes, cafes are great if you're an owner operator. If you either you stay as one, you put a lot of passion in it, you run it and you keep costs low because you are the operator, or you scale up to at least 10, 20, where you have a central kitchen and you have that, you're big enough to find that margin in a very, very tight labor. It's just tough, right? F&B. You either keep small or you go really huge. And if you're stuck in the middle, I just felt that it was really, really difficult. And I very invested in it, and I thought there's got to be a better way. And while the world was looking at, things are changing, everyone's digitizing, and I knew how to make a great coffee. And I thought, hey, let's leverage on that. And it's initially early days, right? There are a lot of people who are very skeptical. In fact, I'm getting people contacting me now that we have traction and say, hey, Keith, in early days, we were skeptical about this. And we thought it's just, it's just a novelty, getting a robot and make a coffee. It looks great, but it's just not going to fly. But I think it's the marriage of, being very grounded and to use technology in, you need to be very grounded as to, is this just pure novelty, or are you really solving an inherent problem in the industry? And is it something that companies can embrace? Is this for the future? That you have to be very true to yourself. And I think I've been through this many rounds over the last 3 years building the tech, right? Questioning and having that belief. I think that's key, to building tech for good, right? Real tech that is solving real problems, not just, looking good. Yeah.
Right. And in your case, now, Ella, on the other hand, right? In your past interviews, you've also been able to tell us a little bit more about why you've called it Ella. Is probably because of the Rihanna song, right? That was probably the hook kind of got stuck in there. Now, what does Ella bring to the table? Okay, apart from coffee, but what problems does it really solve? When you developed it in the first place, did it match up to your expectations?
I think a lot of that. So Ella, right, initially was obviously to solve the manpower challenge. So it can, it can speed up. It has 4 times the throughput of a human barista. And what we did was essentially, okay, so if you come to a cafe, you think about it, right? The first thing, you go to the cashier, hi, I would like a latte. And you have someone standing there dealing with the POS system. Okay, they key in and then collect $4 from you. They will prepare the coffee and then they'll hand it over to you. So we have kind of like automated the entire process. So you're ordering through the mobile app, you pay with your phone. So we've integrated with payment systems, gateways, created a wallet. So you can order through your mobile phone. That means allowing you to order ahead of time, right? And Ella, being a robotic arm, articulated 6 axis, is like a human arm. She can be programmed to move things around. She prepares the coffee, and it's the same quality coffee. Okay, so exactly the same process as we do in our cafe, and box it up. So what we've done is to automate the entire cafe, completely end to end, right? Squeeze it into a small box and let it run autonomously. So there's no human intervention. Right. And then it's what that means is if you look at a traditional business, you're paying rent. Rent is a big part of it, 20-30% of your revenue. Right. We've squeezed it down to like 4.5 square meters. So that that rental has reduced significantly. We've taken away all labor, that's 20-30%, right? So in effect, and you're selling at close to your retail price, right? I mean, we pass on the savings to end users, so it's cheaper. So there's a reason to go back to Ella. And everything is on a mobile app. So it can run 24/7, right? Without supervision, it's autonomous. So that translates to a very good margin on the business. And in order to come to that point, right, it was a lot of work on the tech part. I can go into the details on how we built that. But just economics wise, just the numbers, it makes sense and it's scalable, right? And then and that is a whole new business model because you are no longer running like a cafe business. You are now creating a new segment of the market where people grab and go. So that fundamentally changes your approach in terms of business development.
Right. I'm sure that some of the questions that you will probably get, right? It's like, oh, what about the baristas now? The art form is lost. And
Yes.
are we really? Yeah. So again, this is the whole thing about Skynet, right? The machines will come over. Like you said, Ella can be programmed to do anything. Essentially, even if you had bad customers, right? Ella could be programmed to throw the customer out if you wanted to, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good point because I initially, people who haven't seen Ella hasn't experienced getting a coffee off Ella, and they're trying to piece this together. And you got to go and you're doing that automated stuff. But they always ask me, Keith, coffee, you need to have that human experience. You got to have that. When you go on to a cafe, you talk to the barista like how I used to talk to I'm still talking, right, to all my customers coming in. So my question is, yes, you expect that, but so we are not trying to replicate the cafe, right? But there is this emerging segment where people just want to grab and go first thing in the morning when you're rushing to work, right? Are you going to have a chat with your barista for half an hour? You're rushing to work. You just want your coffee fast. You want not to queue up. You don't want to queue up. You want it consistent, always great. I just want to grab and go as you have no time to talk to anybody. That's when there's this opportunity there. And how can you then take advantage of that, right? And reduce costs and make it available to everybody. So fundamentally, that cafe model has to be changed. We are addressing a different market segment. And but the question comes back to, yeah, I want to give the great experience to my customers, but that's Keith, right? I still rely on that Keith element, right? And I need to replicate that, which I can't. So how? What are you going to do, right? Ella's the answer.
Okay. So we are not getting rid of the baristas. They have a purpose, that's for sure. This is more of the grab and go. This is the grab and go model whereby it's kind of like having all the pop-ups. You had one at Plaza Singapura, right? Recently, I happened to see it on YouTube with the LG OLED transparent OLED screens.
That's right. That's LG's TOLED screen. We're the first guys to use it, actually. We got the pre-production pieces from LG, and that built the whole user experience. And we kind of, so yes, we do not have a barista, human baristas, but how do you then do it digitally, right? How do you create a user experience to try to replicate as much or recreate new digital experiences to make it a whole new experience rather than what a cafe. So we are not trying to use technology to replicate exactly what a cafe would give you, but close to that in a different way, different manner. But end result is you get a great cup of coffee conveniently, and then retargeting where you're going to place them. So I believe that in future, right, cafes are where it's really focused on human interaction. You go there for the experience, maybe sit down and have a chat with your friends, and having a nice cup of coffee, and see the skill set of what a human barista would do. But that business, to me, unless they start charging a lot more, right? But the economics doesn't make sense in Singapore if you have rental and you have labor and you're charging $5, $6 a cup and then spending 3 hours and consuming the retail space. But that is a problem that the retail team, sector would have to address. Eventually, they have to figure out whether it still makes sense to run that business model. But as a company, Crown Coffee, we realized that is not going to be working for us, and we want to pivot into grab and go, consistent great coffee, small setup, put them all around in a transport network, right? For people who appreciate great coffee on the go.
Now let's dive into Ella a little bit more. When you started building Ella from concept to, I mean, of course, concept ideation and eventually the execution of it, what were the biggest pain points for you? Because, earlier on off the air, I was telling you that I tried CNC. I've tried some of this mechanical engineering. And although it's a completely different field, but just moving it from, the 3-axis, understanding how the movement is and the programming. And plus now you've got AI, you've got direct. As somebody who's not even from the tech space, you were an asset manager before all of this, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden now you're going into, to me, what is rocket science? So what were the biggest challenges for you?
Well, it's everything came in progressively, right? We were initially I wanted to use a robot to automate it. We didn't have a mobile app then, right? It's just a touchscreen POS system, which I borrowed from somebody else, adapted it to get a proof of concept going. I think, and then, I told you earlier with the Alibaba event in Marina Bay Sands, and then that was when I met up with the Marina Bay Sands team, and we got onboarded as their coffee supplier for their exhibition. So since then, we've done like 40 international events, at least, large events where, because Ella is on a card. For the longest time, we had, a mobile card, right? So whenever they have a big, exhibition event, they'll say, Keith, come in, we have 1,000 cups, right, for the next 2 days. And then we'll roll Ella in and serve coffee. So the initial days, building the tech, right, it was hard because how do I even hire the team? It's the team that's coming together to build the entire ecosystem, right? It was finding the right people, the key people who believe in the story. I think as an early startup, you're a coffee shop and now you're a tech company and you don't even have that whole tech yet. And to sell that story to people who believe in it and willing to join you, that was the first hurdle. I managed to get the first team when I went to Hong Kong. It's through somebody introduced, and it was a guy from IBM, a solutions architect, and he was willing to move to Singapore, and I went there and interviewed the whole group of them, and then brought them in, and they started in 2019 January, brand new team, just with an idea how to automate Ella. I really had an idea how she's going to be autonomous shop on its own, but we had to figure out how to piece that together. And different guys have different skill sets. You have the software engineers, you have the solutions architect, you have the robotics part. I picked it up, right? I didn't hire anyone. I kind of learned. I just love it, built it. But putting it together, and then started hiring, it was hard because I thought, okay, let's hire someone from factory automation, right, to do all the, robotic stuff. And when I started, interviewing them, and my vision of what Ella is going to be using AI, meaning computer vision, Industry 4.0, and the talent pool that we have in Singapore who are very much into factory automation, right? These are the guys who answer your, they'll reply to your job ad, right, for robotics and automation. They are the system integrators or they are the factory automation guys. And they're going to bring in their skill set from the factory, very, very automation, factory focused. Whereas Ella is retail. You're going to put in robots into retail. It's yes, you have automation, but you can't be like a factory going zaza. You got to have that look and feel that will appeal to end users because you're making coffee. You're not making you're not in a wafer fab. You're not in a CNC factory. So yeah. When I started interviewing them, I realized, that their skill set in factory is so embedded into that factory automation. They're gonna turn Ella, if they were to build it, into a factory.
Right, it's going to be this massive tank, right, with an articulated arm. So how are you going to wheel that around?
So I then I realized, no, that's not possible. And when I told them, okay, I threw a few questions to them. I said, okay, so if there's a spill, right? If for some reason Ella spilled coffee, right? How are you going to detect that? Because it's unmanned, no one's going to be there. How are you going to know? They said, well, we're going to put sensors all over. I mean, sensors all over. That means a lot of hardware, a lot of sensors, a lot of wiring, and that doesn't make sense. I mean, can you use vision? Vision. I said, yeah, we can use vision. We are used to using vision systems to do checks on our in the factory, but that kind of vision system is used for checking quality control on all the electronic components, right? It's different from what we want to use. I said, why can we use a webcam and then just run an AI workload and recognize a spill, maybe put it through machine learning and just learn what the spill looks like. They say, oh, that's Industry 4.0. Our factory is trying to get there. So they are trying to they want to get into Industry 4.0, but they're not there yet. And so then I realized, what we're trying to do, we're trying to achieve with Ella is the frontier. We're trying to achieve something that people are building for the first time. There isn't anything out there that is like that because we're building something from scratch, right? New. Then I realized that, I cannot get that because they're going to bring their legacy in and we're going to get stuck in that vicious cycle So eventually we never got ourselves a robotic engineer. We did it ourselves. Our software guys learn all the codes and kind of like, we kind of figure out ourselves. That was the most challenging in the early days, getting that direction and being very focused on how the technology will eventually be and how we built that base code. It was from scratch, right? We decided, okay, we're going to do it on C#, right? And we're going to figure out how we're going to connect everything together as IoT and just get on with it, So that was the initial days, and it was very painful because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And initial days was like, it was hell. We were at times when the minister was coming, trying to get a coffee, right? And it was right there when things failed, I was like, I wish I disappeared. I wish I wasn't there.
You just wish like a spider came and just ate you or something.
I
right?
wish I
terrible.
just disappeared there and then, right? Like I had all these scares. It was, oh my gosh, it was but that gave us that real world testing running out in Marina Bay Sands, and we kind of figure out along the way. It was really painful, but eventually we learned. And that was like, to me, the baptism of fire. We went through everything, right? And that gave us the experience of what to avoid and what works. Yeah.
Right. Also about testing, and there's nothing that beats Murphy's Law.
Yeah. I mean,
right, nothing will defeat it.
And you got to be on the ground, right? Really, and we were very lucky with Marina Bay Sands because we did like over 100,000 copies. We learned everything. It's not just the robots moving around; it's the syncing, the database, it's everything, the latency, because you're running live. And the coffee has got to taste good, End of the day, you have all that fanciful robots and AI. Your coffee has to taste good, and we managed to do that well because that's Crown Coffee, right? Our experience as an operator. So we ensured the coffee tastes great, and the operations, the daily operations, topping on the milk, ensuring that all these are done. That was, I think, is a combination of that operational experience we have as a cafe, and then really knowing the problem statement and understanding the operational aspects of things, translating it into technology that is wrapped around it, right, to solve it. And then having that opportunity to test it in real world, getting paid at the same time, and then feedback. We are super, super agile, right? I'm that crazy guy, immediately I send something, goes in a group chat, and then we solve it. So it's crazy, a lot of that.